Welcome back to Tucked In Wizards, guys. As always, my name is Aidan, and I'm here with my co-host, Ben.
Welcome back, guys. If I sound a little different, I got a new mic, and also I'm a little sick today. So we're here to talk about the second round of the playoffs. Just ended literally a couple hours ago. So Pretty exciting stuff. You want to start? We just start with the two series that we kind of knew was going to happen in I guess three of those series we kind of had a good idea of what was going to happen after the first couple games, but we can talk about the two that went 5 first. Which we want to start with.
I mean, one of the ones that went 5 I was not expecting before it started, but like you said, you can kind of see where it went. Let's talk about the Cavs and Pacers. It was kind of crazy to me just how much the Cleveland crumbled, and they did have a bunch of injuries, to be fair to them. Like, DeAndre Hunter was going through some stuff. Garland wasn't really around for a ton. I know Mobley was dealing with some stuff. But to see Donovan Mitchell have that good of a series and just see the rest of the team, like specifically Jared Allen, really just crumble around him was pretty crazy. It made me, it always goes back to the lights were brighter than we expected graphic with Jared Allen. It just kind of felt like that again this year of like, he wasn't quite sure where he was supposed to be or what he was supposed to be doing at times. And the Pacers were just so fast that by the time he like reacted to it and like kind of recovered or was where he needed to be, they were already scoring. Super entertaining series for one that went 5 to me. I think it's always entertaining when the underdog wins, especially in that fashion. And I think it really shut up a lot of people who had a lot of questions about Indiana, me included. Honestly, I was not sure that they were going to be able to get past Cleveland, and they proved me wrong very quickly. And I think it should be pretty encouraging for Indiana fans for chances of maybe making the finals.
Yeah, I've been really high on Indiana for a while. I know Aidan will agree with me there. I really like a lot of their players. And I think this series was won in game 2 when the Cavs blew that 7-point lead, was it, in 30 seconds. Halliburton hits the game winner. I was like, this series is over. The Pacers are going to win it. I don't know if it's going to be 4. I don't know if it's going to be 5. The Pacers have won the series. And that's pretty much what happened. I'm interested in what you think about this. The Pacers team is so interesting because they don't have like the stereotypical superstar player that you see out of a lot of these top teams. Like, there's no Jalen Brunson or Anthony Edwards or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's a lot of like they play by committee. And you have Tyrese Halliburton, who you can kind of classify as that star player, but at each position they have like the guy that every other team would want for that specific position. Like, you have the elite playmaker, you have the on-ball defender that can create, you have the hustle 3-and-D guy, you have the back-to-the-basket 3-and-D guy, and then you have their center who's like the archetype that every team is looking for. Like, he shoots threes and he blocks shots. And it's like almost so simple, but it seems so attainable for every team, but the Pacers just have the best ones for everything.
Yeah, I think a lot of credit has to go to the coaching staff and just the schemes they've been drawing up. Rick Carlisle's really got the offense humming, and like they don't look that bad on defense at times. There's like times where you're like, okay, this is the Indiana Pacers, I know and expect, like, you just have to outscore them. And then there's times where it's like, okay, they're actually, Siakam's getting a really big defensive possession and like stuff like that. But I mean, their offense, the pace they play at is just so quick.
Yeah, you can tell.
I do think Halliburton deserves some praise for that. For sure they did. Yeah, the Cavs didn't stand a chance. And I think it's going to hurt the Knicks a bit too. The Knicks are a slower team for sure. And the question has been, can teams get Indiana to slow down? And I don't think they have. Even last year, the Celtics just played to their pace rather than slow down. So I think the Knicks will have to do that. I don't know if they have it in them. I don't know if Tibbs can figure out some different offensive scheme, because I know he really loves what he does. But they were throwing out some different things against Boston, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we'll see
it's going to be such an interesting series because you have this team that plays fast, go, and then this team that is the complete opposite. So it's going to be like whoever plays their specific game, I think, is going to be the one that will end up winning.
Yeah, and I would say that, maybe the Knicks have some really good defenders that can slow people down. Brunson's not slowing anyone down, though. And I thought that about Cleveland, too. And they showed that it didn't really matter as much. They're just able to they're able to play at their pace pretty much whenever they want on offense, which is rare.
Yeah,
and very impressive.
And I think it all comes down to also what we were saying before, like not even before the series started, but like during the season, is that the two small guards playing together, I don't feel like that can work as a championship core, just because you're giving up so much on the defensive end, and especially if Darius Garland's not playing up to his usual standard, and now like Mitchell has to do pretty much all the scoring. He's not getting any help from Garland. Garland's not really helping on defense either. It's like, what is this guy doing? And it's hard to overcome that, even when you have Mobley and Allen backing them up. It's just, you can't be getting blown by at every possession, and the Pacers just took advantage of that big time.
Yeah. And I think from Cleveland's perspective, you can't help but view the season as anything else but a pretty objective failure.
Success and failure.
When all those
the regular
games,
season, huge success. The playoffs, it's tough to go out losing or winning pretty much the exact same number of games as last year.
Yeah, it's the way they went out too, and like they were definitely the favorite. And
nothing is. I don't remember what the score was when they lost the first one.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but I know what you're talking about, where he was like talking about failure and stuff. But I think changes will have to come. I think they could have avoided that even if they lost in the conference finals, but the way they lost, the round they lost in, I mean, to me, Garland kind of has to be moved. He kind of showed that, like, he's a redundancy next to Mitchell, not really a bonus. And they could definitely use that in other areas. And I think I kind of overvalued DeAndre Hunter. I thought that trade was really, really, really good for them. And I think it was just, like, good, really good for sure, but it wasn't, like, win the championship type move.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting because I know Ty Jerome is going to be a free agent this year. I think he lost a lot of money with this series because he didn't really play that well. Just a lot of the guys that they relied on. No, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say Ty Jerome could have cost himself like $50 to $70 million. Just based on his play in this one series, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that's the NBA business. If you don't perform in the playoffs, you know you're not going to get it. But it's just a lot of the guys they relied on. Max Strus had a couple stinkers.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked about Darius Garland and Jared Allen, but
yeah. I mean, looking at the other side, it was another 5-game series, wasn't it? The Minnesota Golden State.
Yeah, and that one I think we both thought was going to be a lot closer, and then Steph Curry goes down with his injury, and
yeah, it's unfortunate.
The Warriors just without Steph, it's not a very good team, and it kind of showed.
And we didn't even get one playoff dreamy game without Steph. Which kind of sucked. It's like, this is what they got the guy for this exact scenario, and didn't really work out.
They just needed one to extend it so that Steph could possibly come back. They couldn't get
couldn't get there. And I think I cursed everyone. I think the last playoff prediction, something like that, I was saying how this was like the healthiest playoffs that we've had in a while, I feel like. And since then, every single series has had pretty debilitating injuries, which is a shame. But I don't think it made too much of a difference here. I think even if Curry's playing, I don't see Minnesota losing. Minnesota's in a really, really strong form. I think this is the best Randall's ever looked in the playoffs in his career.
Absolutely.
I think it helps that he has a more stable role. But yeah, he has played like a superstar, and I think this is a year that they can definitely get it done.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Timberwolves, according to a lot of metrics during the last couple of months of the season, were the second best team in the West. And because of that rough start they had, they only finished 6th. And of course, how crazy the West was going into the regular season. But it's interesting because you always look at like the last couple months and you're like, does this really matter? Will this matter come playoff time? It's definitely showing that it matters. The Timberwolves dominated the Lakers. I get it. There was no Steph, but they won that series pretty handedly. None of the games. There was like one game maybe that was kind of close that you thought, okay, maybe the Warriors can win this game. Outside the game they won, I think game 3 after Steph goes down. And I mean, besides that, it's been pretty dominant for the Timberwolves. I'm super curious to see how they do against OKC because obviously the Timberwolves are the second best team. OKC has been the best team in the NBA, so we'll see if they could deal with the defensive pressure the Thunder bring.
I think it's going to be a great conference finals. I think that the Thunder showed that they're beatable versus the Nuggets, and I think the Nuggets I think it's a terrible matchup for them. I think it's, we'll talk about the Nuggets a little later. I am not that surprised with how the series ended up. I think the Nuggets put up a really good fight, but the Timberwolves have been on the other side. They've looked way better than I think some people have expected out of them.
Yeah.
I was pretty high on them, but not this high going to the playoffs. And the way they've handled themselves shows me that, like, in ways that I thought OKC was less beatable than they are, I thought the Timberwolves were a little more beatable than they are. Their defense looks great. Their offense hums when it's working. Gobert's getting more involved on offense even somehow. I think that's going to be a great matchup. I don't see it going less than 6, honestly.
Yeah, a lot of things that if you go back to our initial playoff preview when we picked the Lakers over the Timberwolves, we mentioned, like, okay, we don't really know how Randall's going to perform in this playoffs. That's going to impact the series a lot. We're saying you can stake Jackson Hayes on Gobert. He's not going to do a thing on offense, so that's not really a mismatch they can exploit, which is something they did exploit, which was very impressive from Gobert, of all people. And then obviously you had Randall playing like a superstar. Jaden McDaniels all of a sudden is this 3-level scorer, completely unexpectedly. He doesn't pass the ball, but he can pretty much score from anywhere in these playoffs, and that's the reason why they're 8-2.
Yeah. And I think it's two very deep teams facing off against each other. I think that's kind of what hurt Golden State here, was they're not even nearly as deep as Minnesota is. And Minnesota can just, like, I mean, one of their best players is their 6-man, Naz Reid. Like, not best players objectively, but he's super important for what they need. And, like, anytime they need a big shot, he steps up and makes it.
Mm-hmm. And they have a bunch of those guys, like Dante DiVincenzo, isn't scared of the moment, and Nikhil Alexander-Walker hasn't been scared of the moment in his time in Minnesota, so they just have a lot of guys that they could comfortably rely on.
And OKC just went 7, very grueling series. Their role players didn't really play up to the standards I think most people expected out of them, besides Alex Caruso, obviously. And to me that's like, well, we know DiVincenzo's going to knock down some threes. Is this going to be a game where he can step up and knock down some threes, or is he going to have another cold stretch? And I think this is a series where OKC needs those other guys. Obviously, Shea can't do it all by himself, and J-Dub has shown that, like, you know, he maybe can't carry the same load on his shoulders every night that Shea can.
A little inconsistency.
Yeah, a little inconsistent. And I think you need a lot of your supporting cast who have, I don't want to give them too much credit, but they're a big reason why this is a 68-win team in the regular season.
Exactly.
I think those guys can come in and make the difference in the series. I think it's really going to come down to that.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about, while we're on Thunder and Nuggets, we can talk about that. Obviously, one of the best series of the second round. One of the best series of the playoffs so far. And it's kind of a shame that Aaron Gordon got that hamstring strain. I know the Thunder kind of blew them out in Game 7. I don't know how much Aaron Gordon playing would have actually mattered with how on the Thunder were that game.
Yeah.
But still kind of sucks to see him go down. Michael Porter Jr. obviously dealing with that shoulder injury. Pretty bad series overall from him. And it's the first time we've seen Jokic look relatively human. I think the Thunder defense did a pretty amazing job outside of that one 40-20 game of
I do want to talk a little bit about
getting him frustrated. Go ahead.
I am a little annoyed at the way that, not specifically Jokic, but the way that small guys on big guys get officiated. Where, like, Caruso did a great job on him this series, but if you watch it, objectively, he fouls him like 3 to 4 times every single possession. He's, like, grabbing his arm, he's pushing him around, and it's like, you can't call that all the time. That's just a fact, because the game would suck ass. I don't want them to call that even half of the time. But it's frustrating to watch because they did a great job on Jokic. They just stuffed 4 guys in the paint every time he tried to do anything, and they did a really, really good job in the passing lanes. But a lot of they just played small guys on Jokic and just kind of, but they hacked him a bunch and grabbed his arms a bunch. And I still think they're losing this game no matter what, because it's a 40-point blowout or whatever it ended up being. But it is unfortunate that we got the injuries we did. I would have liked to see a healthy Aaron Gordon, of course. They came out looking really strong for the first 4 minutes or something, and then kind of crumbled. And it was like tied to end the first, and then the big Thunder lead happened in the second quarter when they just kind of ran out of steam. But I still think it's a great series. I think the Thunder definitely deserve to move on. They, how they looked, I think, from Game 1 versus Game 7 in the series is a very big difference. Shea looked really composed the whole time. I think this is their year. I think it's the championship is there for the taking if they can step up and take it. But it's really going to depend on just stepping up in the moment. Can anybody not named Shea Gilgeous-Alexander really step up and be consistent for a whole series? Because they will need that. Denver's a great team, but they're not quite as complete as Minnesota are, I feel. And we're dealing with a little bit of injuries. I am interested to see what they're going to be doing in the offseason. I do think Michael Porter is probably going to get moved. I don't think he's really ever had a run where he's fully healthy. Even the championship run, he was dealing with some injuries. I'm curious to see what happens with Murray. I think it's a very consequential series. I think it's, I don't want to say the best in the past 5 years or whatever, but it's up there, especially for second round series.
I mean, I don't even think it's the best of the playoffs. I think the other Nuggets series is better.
Thunder Clippers is really good.
It was a great series. Before the series started, I think we all both predicted the Thunder to win, but we kind of talked about, like, if the game is close, it favors the Nuggets. And that was true for the first 3 games, where the games were close, and then obviously the Thunder were down with 2. But the 2 games, game 1 and game 2, were close, and the Nuggets kind of turned it on and was able to do it. And then the rest of the series, we kind of saw this shift where the Thunder figured out how to play in these close games. And I think that's a scary sight if you're a Minnesota fan or if you're a Pacers-Knicks fan going, if you meet them in the championship, where it's like, oh, the Thunder really weren't battle tested all season, to be honest, and all of a sudden now they get really tested by this Nuggets team, this veteran Nuggets team, and they come out on top. And there's some injuries to go along with it, but for the games 4 through 6, the injuries didn't really play a factor. The Thunder just closed out those games, and again, historic differential. They were going to get these blowouts against the Nuggets, but them winning those close games really turned the tide of the series, because it was not something that I think, not that people didn't expect them to do, they knew they had it in them, but they weren't sure how it was going to play out when you have a team with such experience like the Nuggets on the other side, but it worked out for them.
For sure. And I do have to give them a lot of credit. It is interesting to see, though, that I didn't expect the Nuggets team to be able to get this far, honestly. I thought this was going to be a 5 or 6 game series. And I think I've been seeing a lot of people shitting on Jokic for some reason, which is like, sure, he didn't have the greatest series for his standards, which is still like 27, 10, and 6 or whatever.
Ridiculous.
But he was the massive underdog in this against the 68 team juggernaut who had not dropped a game all playoffs. So to see him take him to 7 was great to see, as someone who lives in Denver and I like Denver. I'm not going to call myself a Denver fan because I'm a Wizards fan. But I root for them when they're in the West, or when I'm watching teams in the West.
And when the Wizards are out, which is always.
Yes, exactly. But when the Wizards swept them in the series, I was cheering right along with them.
We were there at the game.
We were there.
The only 3 people in the whole building too.
But I'm curious to see. This is going to be year 5 of a different championship, different champion every
7,
year. No repeats. 7.
Right?
Because Because since 2018,
Toronto,
yes,
Lakers.
yes.
Oh yeah, well you can go back to Warriors, Toronto, Lakers.
Yeah.
So parity era, and the second apron is going to keep that up. I mean, eventually we're going to see a repeat, but
Yeah. And I'm a big hater of the flattened odds, and I'm a hater of the new CBA with the second apron, but I'll give credit when credit is due. This is this statistically the most? You said it's the most parity we've ever had in the NBA ever. So
in terms of championships.
Yeah, which is good. And it's interesting to see how that'll continue. It's the Spurs are going to be good. That's something we can all figure out pretty quickly.
Speaking of that, it's nice in a way, and a little funny that the 4 teams left are 3 of the smallest markets in the league in New York. But the small markets are. I don't think it's as big as an advantage to be a big market in the NBA anymore. Like more like the NFL, where it's really not an advantage at all in the NFL. And obviously, we could talk about baseball, but we're not going to get into that. Where it's a huge advantage.
I think it's a bit of an advantage. I mean, we just saw the biggest trade in NBA history favoring the Lakers.
It's not as big, I think, as people make it out to be.
I agree. And I think it's also an era where, like, the NBA has been very quick to market OKC. It's been interesting to me watching it because OKC is always a media darling and they're always marketed, but, like, they're not really that big of a fan base. They're not a traditional big market. It's kind of the same with the Warriors. Which gives me hope as a Wizards fan because we're a big market, first of all. We have a very passionate fan base when the team is winning. Very wishy-washy, but, I can't blame them because the team's been awful for 60 years. So, I think if we can market something, I think this year is a big year to see, like this is the year to me, which is like, okay, do we really have something with Winger and Dawkins? Can we hit on some random bullshit 6th random pick that nobody knows?
Jeremiah Fears. I think that's both of our guys right now.
Yeah, I really like Fears.
I know that's kind of, I think, a hot take in the draft community, actually, because he's so... well, we can talk about prospects in the mock draft.
Yeah.
We're going to go to Knicks Celtics.
Yeah, let's move on to Knicks Celtics. I don't have a ton to say about the series. I think I've been seeing a lot of Celtics fans. I think even if Tatum's not injured, the Knicks are probably going to be winning the series just on how they were playing. Definitely that game. But it just sucks to see an injury like that for one of the best players, best young up-and-coming players in the NBA. And he's so good that at 27, he's not even really an up-and-coming player anymore. He's a staple.
He's technically, is he not even in his prime yet?
No.
He's going to miss his prime year, I guess, at 28.
Yeah, some people say 26 to 28 is the start, and it goes from like 33 to 35. That's the range I've seen, mostly. But it's pretty tough. I was just talking to my dad. He said he's a big Celtics fan. I'm born and raised in New England, but I was in DC forever. He's really born and raised in New England. He said that he saw this article where it was with like a medical doctor that was talking about specifically Achilles injuries, and he said a big component of recovery was that Tatum got the injury in like 12 hours. Like, he got injured that night, and then next morning he got the surgery.
Crazy.
And yeah, which is crazy. But he said like this actually does make a big difference because scar tissue starts to form within a couple hours of the Achilles getting torn, and if you're getting it repaired 48 hours versus 12 hours, that makes a huge difference for recovery and like, coming back. And apparently a big part behind the scenes with these things is usually, okay, well, we just got injured. Now my agent and the team's medical guys have to figure out who we want to go to and what availability they have and all this. And that's kind of a benefit of being a big star in a large market, is the team and agent were instantly aligned and went, okay, here's our guy, best doctor in the world, has an opening tomorrow, let's do it. So getting it quick is very key for him coming back. I hope he can come back kind of like KD did, where KD came back and looked pretty much the exact same. Modern medicine's pretty crazy.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, even from like 2018, it's gotten so much better. Like when John Wall tore his Achilles, he was never the same player.
No, he also instantly tore his ACL in the shower after that, so that didn't help.
That also didn't help. But even going back to like when Kobe tore his Achilles, like he was obviously he was kind of on his way out at that point anyway. But he was never the same. KD's the only guy I feel like that's come back from an Achilles tear, looking pretty close to what he was in his.
And I think this might be the youngest Achilles tear ever. Like 27 is pretty crazy. This is not a young guy's injury. This is like later in your career. So I think that has a lot of people really nervous. But on the flip side, we don't know how a young guy's going to come back from it at a level this high.
Yeah. For Tatum's sake, I hope he comes back still at the level he's at.
Yeah, but
I know I give him a lot of grief, not on camera, just for I think he's an inconsistent shooter and he should drive to the basket more. But I am hoping that he recovers well because the Celtics team is fun to watch when they're fully healthy.
Yeah, and I think we're not going to be seeing the same team ever again. We'll see what changes they make, but I don't think they can feasibly keep this core together, even with injury. They get like some injury relief stuff, but I don't think it'll matter. But I don't want to spend too much time on Tatum's injury and stuff. This was a huge win for the New York Knicks. This is like the furthest they've gone in like 30 years or something.
Yeah, since 2000.
Huge congratulations for them. They looked really poised. They looked really... their execution in clutch situations was amazing. I think... It
was incredible. Throughout the first 2 games, and even after game 2, the Celtics obviously up by 20 in both of those games. Knicks come back and win. And you're like... Is this a real thing that the Knicks are going to do? Like, are they actually going to win this series, or is this just 2 crazy comebacks, and then the Celtics are going to rattle off 4 straight? And then in Game 3, obviously, the Celtics shoot like 50% from 3 and blow them out. And you're like, okay, here come the Celtics train. Like, they're coming back. Like, they're going to win the next 3 straight. And I have a lot of family in New York. I have a lot of Knicks fans who are kind of along the same mindset. But then that Game 4, was that the game?
Yeah, that was Game 4. Yep.
When they make that comeback as well, and then I think it kind of felt real. Mikal Bridges kind of living up to that 5 first-round picks. They literally brought him in for this matchup, and he delivered in pretty much every game of the series. So, worth a trade for them for now, I guess. But I think they would do that again.
It was kind of a weird year for the Celtics too, where I saw Brown's dealing random illness. Yeah, Porzingis has that weird illness that's like seems really serious, but they have no quote unquote no clue what it is. So that's a weird ass situation to begin with. I saw Jaylen Brown is dealing with like a hamstring tear since the end of the regular season. So they were a little banged up, and obviously the Tatum thing hurts. And they maybe could even, I think they probably lose that game. Who knows? Tatum went down with like 2 minutes left. They're down 7. They could have won, but they're not looking like they're gonna. And then the next game they blow out the Knicks and then get blown out Game 6.
And this is a big gripe with Missoula Ball too.
Yes.
I think is they're constantly trying to shoot themselves out of these slumps.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of gave up. It seemed to work last year where they could like if they were having a slump, it wasn't that bad, and then they'd shoot themselves out of it. But in this series, especially the first 2 games, it's like they're shooting like 16% from 3, and they just keep jacking them up, and you're letting the Knicks get back in the game. You're not taking time off the clock, and it's just like, this is our strategy. We're not going to devoid from it. This
does go back to my off-camera last season take that a healthy Porzingis is extremely important to how the Celtics team plays.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't hit shots. If he can't hit shots, why is Mitchell Robinson leaving the paint? You can just leave him back, and now the lanes aren't open. You can't drive as much. No more kick-outs for easy makes. But at the same time, the Knicks team did a great job shutting that down. Their defense was amazing. And they're even like Karl Anthony Towns was able to hold us in on defense, which is pretty surprising because he does not do that super often. And I think that's something that's a little concerning for them moving forward. Is like,
especially against
that's what I'm like the
pace. And
Indiana,
I think is even more of a threat here because they're going to drag Mitchell Robinson out onto that perimeter.
Oh yeah, and then even if they're not dragging him around, they're just like screening constantly and running around. Like it's going to be hard for him to keep up. I think it's going to be hard for them all to keep up. Yeah. That's just what the Pacers do. They kind of force you to play at this breakneck speed that you're not used to, and they've been playing at for 90 games this season.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the conference finals matchups, make our predictions?
Sure.
Pacers-Knicks is like a classic.
That is a classic.
Late 90s, early
Reggie Miller commentating
matchup.
the whole series. It's going to be a movie.
Patrick Ewing. It's really a blast from the past. Not that I was,
No, I wasn't around.
Conscious, but...
I think I got the Pacers, honestly. I like the Knicks. I think the Knicks have, on paper, more talent, but everybody the Pacers play on paper have more talent to me. So, and that hasn't really mattered so far. So I think it's going to be very entertaining. I think it's going to be very high scoring. I think there's going to be a lot of blowouts. I think it's going to go 6, but I actually got Pacers in 7. I think is my final prediction. I think it's going to be a really
same as last year. I'm inclined to agree. I'm going with the Pacers. I actually think they've been the best team in the playoffs so far. We'll see what happens if they run into like a Thunder team like that.
Yeah,
But,
I don't know if I agree with that. In the East, maybe, yeah, for sure. In the playoffs,
they've definitely been the best team in the East so far.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like the matchups and how bad they're beating these teams.
Yes.
But Tyrese Halliburton, it's going to be interesting because Halliburton and Brunson are two of the clutchest point guards, I think, in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously you have all the others. Like I said before, the Pacers are just such a well-oiled machine where every piece they have is like the perfect piece for that specific position.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what the Knicks can do to stop them.
Yep.
But I have Pacers in 6.
And then on the other side, we're looking at Wolves Thunder. I think this is going to be a tough matchup.
Series.
Another very interesting series. It's two relatively inexperienced teams, even though Minnesota was here last year. Ant's still pretty young, but they have players like Gobert, like Randall, like DiVincenzo, like Conley, who've been in the mix every single year. So they're a bit more experienced than they seem on paper, I think. And this is a very inexperienced Thunder team who have never been in this situation before. So two relatively inexperienced teams, besides Caruso, obviously. So it's going to be, I think, very interesting. I think it's going to be a very good defensive series. But to me, I think I got to go with Thunder in 6.
Yeah,
I think they're just rolling right now.
It's going to be a very grinded out series, I think. It's going to be similar to the Nuggets series, in which if the Timberwolves want to win this series, they're going to have to win the close games because the Thunder are going to get a couple blowouts on them. Because that's what the Thunder do. And I think because of that, you're giving like some of these free wins to the Thunder. I don't know if the Timberwolves can blow them out in these games. And yes, the Timberwolves defense is better than the Nuggets. Better rim protection. They got better perimeter defenders, but they also don't have like the best offensive player in the world. So
yes,
it's harder for me to see past the Timberwolves winning than it is the Thunder. You need a huge series out of obviously Anthony Edwards, but Julius Randle as well. You're going to need an amazing series on both sides of the ball out of Jaden McDaniels. But the Thunder inexperience is still there. But because now they're a little bit more battle tested, I think I'm going to go Thunder in 7. I think the Wolves can get 3, but I think the Thunder are going to come out of it and play for the NBA Finals. And I think they'll probably win the Finals as well.
Yeah, I think if they can make it there, they'll win. I think whoever comes out of the West is going to win the Finals. It's tough to see, to me, the Knicks or Pacers beating either of these teams for 4 games.
Knicks
Timberwolves
would be an amazing series if that happened.
Yeah, Knicks Wolves or Pacers Wolves. Yeah,
Knicks Wolves.
Knicks Wolves would be amazing. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm rooting for the Timberwolves for the rest of this year, I think. Something about the Thunder, I just don't love the Thunder. I like Shea. I don't love how they aura farm a bit too much for my tastes.
They do be aura farming.
They do be aura farming. I think it's more interesting if they don't win this year because I want to see what they do in the future. And I could see
if the Wolves win this series, I will legitimately have no idea who's going to win the Finals. Yeah. But with the Thunder, I'll be like, okay, I'm kind of leaning towards the Thunder.
Yes. And I think there's going to be a real risk of me getting pretty sick of the Thunder in a few years. So I'd like to avoid that for as long as I can.
Yeah. Big Chiefs energy. They used to go against the Warriors. That was the...
Yeah. That was the hate watch series for me.
But yeah, that's the conference finals. We'll be back. We'll have our mock draft pretty soon. Probably after the finals, but we'll talk about the finals matchup.
Yep.
And yeah, I guess we'll see you when that happens.
Yep. Gafford.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy DG. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. Nothing major. We hitting the wizard bed tonight, baby. Let's get it. Gafford out.